We had a mysterious knocking sound,
Yeah.
some ambient knocking in the ceiling somewhere that was, every time we went to record, it just kept knocking, and it was very bothersome. I didn't like it. But it's gone now. I've been listening like I'm fucking an Edgar Allan Poe character, like just
Where is it?
driving me insane. A heart thumping in the ceiling. So we have a double dose of the good news, Spencer.
Yes.
For me, I am in, what is it, Dark Descent? Is
Yes.
that the name of it? You sure?
No.
Whispers from Beyond, something like that.
Yeah.
Let me look that up while you tell the folks of your good news.
You're now able to get the Flash of the Dead, Flash of the Dead.
Flesh of the Dead sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, of the Dead Reloaded anthology flash fiction story collection is now available on Lulu.
Lulu. Yeah, so you can get that from Wicked Shadow Press. Your story, Hi, My Name Is that the story that was in that one?
Yes.
So that's a read. Did you look at how many pages it is in the print edition?
It's 5.
5 pages?
Yeah.
Sweet. I am in Dark Descent, Whispers from Beyond from Darkcomb Publishing. It's a flash fiction collection. I was their featured story on their Dark Descent. It's like a monthly thing, and now they collected the into a nice anthology, all the stories. And I am in it. My story, Desolation of the Wendigo. It is a story about a Wendigo who is kind of stuck in it could be future, could be now, the way the world's going, but let's say climate change has caused some crazy wildfires, and the mountains where the Wendigo resides has been desolated into a acrid, ash-filled abomination of what was once nature. And now the Wendigo is stuck in this barren wasteland, basically. What does it do? Find out, read the story. That's it. That's the news we have, I think. Is that all?
I think so.
Starlight Pulp Review, I am in. You can order that now. I just got a notification that mine shipped. Should be here Monday the 21st.
Nice.
So I'm happy about that. And I think that's all the news. We in anything else? You're waiting on submissions. I'm waiting on submissions. I think that is it. Today might be a double recording day because we initially, which I don't know, should I do that for this episode or next episode, the Ray Bradbury stuff?
Which one do we do? I can't remember which one.
We have an episode scheduled about famous writing styles and an episode about Ray Bradbury's writing routine, which actually morphed into famous writers' routines.
Well, then, I think you should probably save that for the Ray Bradbury episode, probably, then.
Well, it's all the same. I mean, we're going to do them both.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to do today? Writing styles? We'll do the writing styles.
Okay.
And then next week's episode will be, unless I just decide to fucking flip
Well, I'm just saying, what would you read from that book should be in the Bradbury episode. Whichever one that is we record, I don't give a shit.
Though it could also apply to the writing styles.
Maybe you started in one. you like at the end of the one episode you started and then you ended and then you pick up at the beginning of the next episode.
I'm just gonna read one page. It's not a big thing. So yeah, today's episode then is about writing styles of the famous. You know them. You want to emulate them. But can you? We'll find out in just a moment. You are listening to the Drunken Pen Ready Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me, as always, Spencer, the Cambridge Cookie Crumbler Church. Again, PG.
Yes.
You are actually going to be something with a woman's anatomy that starts with a C. Not the see you next Tuesday word. That's just harsh. I wouldn't use such crass vulgarities on such an esteemed podcast that I host. Today we are discussing famous writing styles of famous authors that are famous. I bungled that title. It's Writing Styles of Famous Authors, brought to us by craftyourcontent.com. This came out in 2017. I actually purposefully looked up older articles so I wouldn't get some bum-ass modern writers on the list.
Yeah.
I don't want bum-ass contemporary writers. What's your writing style? I put a word and then another word and then AI writes the rest. Fuck your butt. So who do you think, just for shits and giggles, might be on this list? I'm assuming a lot of classic authors who have shaped modern literature.
That, or I'm thinking just like crazy, like I wonder if Hunter S. Thompson's just because of his just daily
gonzo journalism.
Yeah,
and
like you know what I mean, like
not the routines. That's next week's episode.
Yeah.
Writing
all
styles,
styles.
which also probably falls under the category of the same list that we're going to do.
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of these people will overlap.
well, even still, I think that answer still suffices
Okay.
because he has a cool style.
Yeah, I like his style. I'm not going to read this introduction because why?
Yeah.
It mentions Marilyn Monroe and Michael Jackson.
Okay.
I don't like that. Also, Maya Angelou and William Shakespeare mentioned in the same thing.
All right. They all have their own distinct styles, I guess.
I'm assuming that's the case. Anyway, the writing styles of the old guys. This might be broken up into new guys, old guys. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Number one, call me Big Papa, Ernest Hemingway.
A lot of bourbon.
A lot of bourbon.
Or whiskey.
Styles, not the... you keep thinking of the writing routines.
Yeah, well,
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, he's drinking bourbon. He didn't drink. We watched that documentary.
Yeah.
He didn't drink when he wrote. He drank after.
Yeah, well, what he wrote, I could see that.
All right, writing styles. So Hemingway was a journalist, and he took that journalist style into a minimal writing style and applied that to his prose, his fiction.
Was his journalism also written in that very, like...
Well, that's how he crafted his writing style, was through journalism, because you have to be very punctual and prompt and succinct, and you can't overwrite. You know, you have to use...
Because you only have so much space.
Yeah, you can't have the big fucking 12-letter words and all that shit. You have to be minimal. And that's where he shined as an author, because at the time, flowery language, such as your Fitzgeralds, your James Joyces, even so much as your Proust is I don't know how you pluralize Proust. Marcel Proust and that kind of language was still much in vogue, but Hemingway was the one dissenter where he had this completely different style that took the world by storm, and idiots like us could read it.
Yeah.
Or what would be the approximation of idiots back then, which was probably way smarter than us.
Oh, yeah, still way smarter.
Oh, you dropped out in the second grade, yet you know Latin. We don't know Latin. All right, speaking of Latin, because you asked me about the Ray Bradbury crime collection, and I finished it. I am reading Julius Caesar, or Julius Kaiser, as it's actually pronounced, by one William Shakespeare right now. So you want to talk about fucking Latin? They spoke Latin.
Yeah.
So. Yes, we are starting with the man himself, Ernest Hemingway. Do you think Ernest Hemingway would have been as famous if his name didn't sound like, you know, kind of awesome?
I mean,
it sounds like a writer's name.
It is a good name.
If he was Ernie Hemingway, no. And he
Right.
didn't even like his name, Ernest, I don't think.
Right. Well, I mean, it weirdly suits him, too.
It does. Quite possibly one of the most well-known authors of all time. While I personally, and I don't know who wrote this because I don't think it says, maybe I can look. It says The Craft. Oh, by Erica Rasso. So this is the opinions of this person. While I personally am not a huge fan of his work, most women aren't, Hemingway changed the game in a major way. He pioneered concise, objective prose and fiction, which had up until then primarily been used in journalism. The interesting thing about Hemingway's prose, having read most of his stuff now, at least his main stuff, I find that it is one of those things that blurs the line between fact and fiction. When you read Hemingway's work, which is actually a detriment to Hemingway, and I think he was actually very pissed off when he was alive about this, is you don't often know what's fiction. Like, you feel like he's just either writing about himself and his life or real things that happen, which he often did incorporate in his work, but it was fiction.
Right.
But you see like a lack of imagination in Hemingway's work because, you know, he didn't dive into the fantastical or anything. You were just like, oh, this is like real stuff, but it's still made up. People often assume that it's all real. It's not. It's not just biography.
We're like that old man at the sea. It's not like he was out there and caught a huge fish and like...
Though he did have plenty of experience fishing down in
yeah.
Miami and stuff, but he was not the old man in the sea.
Yeah.
Though a lot of people, which I took it as him writing about his fading fame and aging and the end of his life. That's what it came across to me. He debunked that. He said it was not about him at all. It was just an old man and a fish, and people read way more into it than was there. But that was one of my favorite stories, and it's mainly because I saw that as like an aging man coming to grips with his life, and, you know, ultimately you lose no matter what. Yeah, it's very upbeat. Here's a quote from Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway.
Have you read that one?
Yes, I have. It's all right. Is this the one where he had boner problems? I think it's the one about the guy with the
Is that the Farewell to Arms? Is like his
he falls in love with the nurse. I think that's the one.
Well, no, but I mean, like you said, he had burner problems, so it's like he's saying goodbye to farewell to arms.
His third arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. She's just having a bad time. The initial labor is usually protracted. She's only having a bad time. Afterward, we'd say what a bad time, and Catherine would say it wasn't really so bad. But what? That's why I gotta zone out when I read Hemingway sometimes, because lines like that. But what if she should die? She can't die. Yes, but what if she should die? She can't, I tell you. Don't be a fool. It's just a bad time. She ultimately dies in one of the most heartbreaking scenes of all time. The ending of that book was pretty fucked up because he like writes this guy and this woman end up getting together, and if I remember correctly, they're out like in Switzerland or something, which is another thing Hemingway did a lot, was like ski. And they were in like cabin, and he talks about the magicalness of the snow and being in a cabin and sipping cocoa and all this shit. And then she has to give birth, and things don't go well. It's no surprise that Hemingway learned this direct style of writing as a reporter for the Kansas City Star, but his preference for objective writing was strengthened after he returned from World War I. While 19th century European, read English, writing styles had been generally revered and imitated by authors all over the world, the war put a sour taste in the mouths of many creatives. And that's kind of led to the Lost Generation stuff where it's like, we're tired of the same old shit. Let's reinvent language if we can. In the 1920s, and I have to say 1920s because you can't say 20s anymore because we are in the 20s. And it's not roaring. It's more, we went the dystopian route for some reason.
Yeah.
Good to have flying cars and bourbon. We went with sorrow and still bourbon.
Yeah.
In the 1920s, actually a lot of fucking seltzer waters. Spiked seltzer waters more than bourbon. In the 1920s, immediately after the war, a group of American authors who became the Lost Generations rejected the flowery descriptive... Okay, I already explained that. But I just want to state that I think if you really want to cement a dystopian society, you make them drink sparkling waters with alcohol. Because I just feel like there's no other direct approximation of what makes a society fail than them relying on alcoholic water to get drunk versus bourbons and
like terrible alcohol water too. Like it tastes bad. You need a whole bunch of it.
Well, I think through the chemical cocktails they have created, you could get them that taste like anything you want now. Yep. So if you want Mountain Dew, you can get a fucking alcoholic Mountain Dew. The problem is if you want the quote unquote healthier version that's just seltzer water and alcohol, it tastes like shit.
Yeah.
It tastes like rubbing alcohol dumped into
more rubbing alcohol. Flavored
dumped
rubbing.
Into static. All right, being like Hemingway, every single one of the 9 authors I'll address in this article used their experience to inform their writing styles. But this was especially true of Hemingway. His style of writing was informed by his time as a journalist. Well, I already talked about it. We talked about this. We don't need to reiterate. Hemingway also, and I think this might have been to the detriment of contemporary fiction, because I like to rant on how contemporary writers all kind of write the same. A lot of that stemmed from a lot of these writers wanting to imitate Hemingway.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, I think a lot of the writers, and usually they're not famous, that imitate Hemingway is a lack of skill. They think what Hemingway did was write in this minimalistic style that's easy to replicate,
right? But
they actually miss out on the deepness of Hemingway's work. So what you get is just simple but poor writing.
Yeah.
So you get writing that is easy to replicate because it's simple to do. Think of kids in school just writing a story, but the actual story, they can't replicate that. There's a reason why there's not that many people as famous as Hemingway was, So I think it is interesting that so many writers tried to be like Hemingway, yet very few have actually managed to do that as well. Next up, James Joyce, your favorite.
Yeah, oh yeah.
James Joyce might not be as famous as Hemingway in America, but he is Ireland's pride and joy. His experimental writing styles made him an influence in the modernist avant-garde writing movement of the early 20th century. His novels are defined by their elaborate stream of consciousness style of writing, which is often very hard to follow by novice readers, as it recounts every thought and action of the narrator in exquisite detail. It also is exquisite in the douchebaggery. That the fact that it did, like Ulysses, I read it. Don't need to be written like that. It don't need to be that difficult. Are you ever going to tackle with James Joyce's work? I would recommend maybe just a couple, like Doublings. Doublingers you'd be all right with. It's just short stories.
Maybe. I mean, maybe the letters he wrote to his wife with the farting.
Well, Dubliners would be more I mean, in line with that, not with the farts and stuff, but with the easier to understand writing. It's not Dubliners isn't complex, just short stories. Maybe a little dry for your taste just because of the settings and stuff, but it is not Ulysses or Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah.
Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man I really liked, and that was not complex either.
Okay.
Which is annoying because then it's just like, oh, this guy could have wrote many, many novels that were easy to read and good.
Yeah.
But then he chose to be an elaborate asshole. But then that's why we're still talking about him, so whatever. So this is a quote from Ulysses by James Joyce.
Here you go.
I took off all my things with the blinds down after my hours dressing and perfuming and combing it like iron or some kind of thick crowbar standing all the time. He must have been eating oysters. I think a few dozen. He was in great singing voice. No, I never in all my life felt anyone had one the size of that to make you feel full up. Yeah, there was, I think, a whole chapter that was...
just one run-on sentence?
Yeah, the end of it is just, I think it was 60 pages or something, and I want to say it was a total of 8 sentences in like 60 pages.
So, like, how did you find breaks to, like, in between read? Like, you know what I mean? Because, like, you couldn't read those 60 pages in one sitting, did you?
Mostly.
Oh.
It was the very end. I wanted to finish the fucking thing. And you kind of had to. If you took a break, well, it's not like you were understanding a lot of what was going on anyway, so it didn't really matter. What I would do often was I would try, because there wasn't like periods.
Yeah.
Too much. Yeah, because that would be a sentence. So only 8 periods. There were a lot of commas, but if I could find a section that would just seem like a good break, like between thoughts. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, she goes into a separate topic now. I'm going to take a break there at the top of the page if I can. I was once warned not to read Ulysses without an encyclopedia and a dictionary on hand. Joyce's seminal work. See, if I read it with my Kindle, because I do have a Kindle copy because you could get it for free, I would have highlighted so many words I would never got done with the thing.
I'd say you'd probably still be reading it because you'd be like, what's that? What's that?
Yeah.
What's that?
It was better just to read the book version. I have a bunch of fancy book versions that explain things and stuff. I wanted to read just the regular Ulysses before I ever tackle those. That way I could actually finish the thing. So this person was warned. Joyce's seminal work contains more vocabulary words than the entire Shakespearean canon. Furthermore, his final book, Finnegan's Wake, is considered to be one of the most difficult works in fiction ever written in the English language. I would say any language. And English loosely. I'm saying that's written loosely in English because most of those words aren't words.
Yeah, they're like made up or like combining words and stuff, right?
Exactly. And a lot of slang combined with other slang that's none of which is used now. And it's Irish, so we had no fucking clue. Joyce was known to be extremely intelligent, studying Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, and Dante at a very young age. He was also known to speak 17 languages, including Sanskrit, Arabic, and Greek, yet I don't believe he could speak Irish. Odd, isn't that odd?
Yeah.
It is possible. He was alive at the time where speaking Irish was considered, among city folk, such as him from Dublin, to be like rural speak. So it would be like us trying to emulate some kind of Appalachian hillbillies. It's like, why the fuck would you want to?
Yeah.
You know, like, you'd be an asshole to do that. That's what they thought of Irish because the English beat them down so much. But then there's like an Irish Renaissance, and now they're trying to bring the language back. It is possible that his incredible knowledge of language influenced, his vocabulary knowledge. We get it. Being like Joyce, how you were educated is also a huge deciding. He was a very educated man.
As he just said.
He was a smarty pants. Yeah, this being like them section seems to just reiterate the previous section. Go to college and you could be like James Joyce. There's a lot of assholes that try to write like Joyce. Alan Moore. Alan Moore. Fucking big hairy Alan Moore. Franz Kafka, Spencer.
Ooh.
I'm interested to see what they have to say about our friend Kafka. Mm-hmm. I was first exposed to Franz Kafka in high school when my English teacher assigned The Metamorphosis, a story about a man who suddenly wakes up as a giant cockroach-like creature. I was then assigned another Kafka novel, The Trial, when I was in college. In both instances, I was confused and disturbed by the Czech novelist's writing, but couldn't deny that I hadn't read anything like it before. The interesting thing about Kafka and anyone of Eastern European descent is it's so different from what we would go about doing, like how we would write fiction, that it does read so strangely to Western audiences, I think. Because like even if you think of the Russians, like you can still understand... You know, like the writing style of Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, it's like, oh, okay, it's just good stories written, you know, beautifully or whatever. But like Czech writers and Polish writers and stuff, it seems so different. It's almost like some of like the South American writers. It's like they have their own genre of style.
You'd probably know better than me, but I kind of feel like that kind of works with like the Japanese writers, like they
Yeah,
kind of
because
have their own with just the way their language is.
Yeah, well, that and the Japanese mindset is so different that it comes across very strange to Western audiences sometimes, even contemporary Japanese writers who've been basically raised in a more Western sense, but still just their way their society is run. Like you read some things, and if you're not familiar, I could see a lot of Japanese or non-Japanese readers being like, what the fuck? Like, why would the choices they make in this book are so stupid?
Right.
Like, it doesn't seem realistic. But if you're Japanese, it does. Like, I think like some of the Ryu Murakami books I've been reading recently, it's just like in the miso soup, the one guy is drunk and the guy's lighting his face on fire with a lighter, and the guy kind of takes it for a minute because he wants to be polite, I guess, because like in Japanese society you don't make a scene even when somebody's lighting your face on fire. You're like, I can't make a scene. It's just odd. So Kafka, here is a quote from the Metamorphosis. I really like the Metamorphosis.
Now, what time? When was he alive? Like, what was his like time period?
I want to say 30s and 40s.
30s and 40s.
I'm assuming. It might have been post World War II. I mean, he was alive before then, but I mean, just like when he became a writer, I'm not sure.
Because he died pretty young too, right?
Didn't he kill himself, or was he just sick? I think maybe he was sick. I don't remember. He would have used his arms and his hands to push himself up, but instead of them, he only had all those little legs continuously moving in different directions, in which he was moreover unable to control. If he wanted to bend one of them, then that was the first one that would stretch itself out, and if he finally managed to do what he wanted with that leg, all the others seemed to be set free and would move about painfully. This is something that can't be done in bed, Gregor said to himself, so don't keep trying to do it. At all the quotes, they pick weird ones, it seems like, but that book is very interesting, and I recommend everybody read The Metamorphosis. Anytime a creative piece explores existentialism and feelings of helplessness, it is called Kafka-esque. See, I always thought Kafka-esque, I mean that, but also like the bureaucracy stuff.
Yeah, that, and I always, not really reading, just knowing of like the stuff. I thought of more of like the weirdness also to it, like
like the absurdity of bureaucracy and just being a person in a modern society is what I always get from Kafka. I'm not going to read these being like Kafka stuff. I'm not going to read these extra bits of shit because it just doesn't seem to...
Somebody was trying to hit a word count.
I think so. The writing styles of the women.
All right.
So we're not going new men, we're just going women, which is fine. Mary Shelley, most famous for Frankenstein. She wasn't much of a looker, was she? That's a bad portrait.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures where she doesn't look like that. She looks like a pinky toe.
That's a very like big shoulders. Or like not even big shoulders, but just wide shoulders.
One is very large and the other's not.
Yeah. Well, I think she's supposed to be at like an angle, maybe.
I don't know. Mary Shelley grew up in an environment perfect for nurturing a brilliant writer. Her father, William Godwin, was a philosopher, and her mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, was a prolific journalist and advocate for women's rights. She was primed and primed for literary greatness from birth, and then she married Percy Shelley, a famous poet in the age of Romanticism. Now, do you fall under the category of thinking that Frankenstein was partially written by Percy Shelley and nobody knows?
Oh no, I never even heard that.
That's the rumor because
no.
what was she like 19 when she wrote that?
Yeah, she was pretty young, right?
Yeah, it was her and a bunch of famous
and like not really much after that, right? I mean,
I don't think so. It was her and a bunch of like famous guy writers and stuff in a cabin for I don't know some period of time, and there was like a bet or something. And it was like, who can write the best book in this time period? She wrote Frankenstein. There's a rumor that Frankenstein... Okay, here's a rumor. There was a rumor that Frankenstein was created because of a bet between Mary Shelley, her husband, and Lord Byron. I think Lord Byron and Mary Shelley's husband were putting in each other's...
Oh, each other's.
Doublés.
Ah.
I don't know what a doublé is. I don't even know if that's the right word. No one could quite confirm this story, but the fact remains that many women did write novels in spite of men. Yes, we are aware of all those famous women writers. Shelley's writing style was influenced by the romanticism she observed in her husband's writing, and the style is perpetuated by Gothic literature. She also infused her writing with philosophical questions, which she learned from her father, and raw emotion, which she experienced as Who taught her to make Dr. Frankenstein faint so much, though?
Right, yeah.
Who told her that? Is that the romanticism? Oh, I'm catching the vapors over and over and fucking over. I was so happy when that book was done, when I didn't have to read it anymore. There is something at work in my soul which I do not understand. I am practically... Oh, sorry. This is from Frankenstein.
Well, before you do that, I was gonna say, like, if that bet rumor is true, like, what were those other two books like? If Frankenstein was like the best one?
Shit. No, I'm pretty sure they were also famous. The other books.
Oh, really?
I think so. Let me see. So it was Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, and John Polidori were staying in a thing. There was a challenge in Germany. Byron and Polidori wrote fragments. Mary Shelley initially struggled to come up with an idea. The outcome, she created Okay, so John Polidori also used Byron's idea to create the vampire, which is what set Dracula in motion eventually.
Okay.
It was like the original vampire story. I remember something famous came from that. So yeah, he wrote the vampire, spelled with a Y, and I can't find other information.
So that would have been after.
That was during the bet.
But I mean, that would have been taking place like with like when was like that?
That was written before Dracula. That was written before Dracula.
Before
Dracula was based on some of the ideas in the vampire.
Okay.
If I remember from our Dracula episode, which you can listen to now. I don't know how many years ago that was. Frankenstein. This is a quote from Frankenstein. There is something at work in my soul which I do not understand. I am practically industrious, painstaking, a workman to execute with perseverance and labor. But besides this, there is a love for the marvelous, a belief in the marvelous, intertwined in all my projects, which hurries me out of the common pathways of men, even to the wild sea and unvisited regions I am about to explore. Blah, 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 blah. Next up, Agatha Christie.
Okay.
Wake up, Spencer. We got Agatha. One of the best lady names. When I think Agatha, I think hot. Hot. And by hot, I mean sweaty. Another well-known and prolific writer, Agatha Christie published over 60 literary works and is considered to be the master of contemporary detective novels. So she wrote a bunch of detective novels.
You've read a couple, right?
Murder on the Orient Express.
I thought you read another one of her. Were you talking about reading another one of hers before?
It's hard to say. I talk a lot, but do I walk the walk? I don't know. This is a quote from "And Then There Were None." It's those little figures, sir, in the middle of the table, the little china figures. 10 of them there were. I'll swear to that. 10 of them, sputters Mr. Rogers as he realized that after the deaths of Marston and Mrs. Rogers, the number has been reduced to 8. So she's credited with writing good mystery. There were a lot of mystery writers and stuff, but she is one of the most famous. Her writing style is, just from reading the Murder on the Orient Express, I would say flowery contemporary.
Okay.
So it's a little flowery, little not convoluted, but you know.
But it moves.
It moves, yeah. This one I have not read this author yet, but she's been on my list for a while. Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston may not be quite as well known as the authors I've referenced above, but her style is one of the most unique and important writing styles that I've read. And she's also one of those writers I think a lot of college kids read now because of diversity. Like they, because everyone reads the Maya Angelou and the Toni Morrison, but how many other prolific black female writers in American history are there? Zora Neale Hurston's one of them, and a lot of people have not read her work for years and years, but now she's making a comeback.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even think I've heard of her.
Yeah, I didn't. I heard of her actually. I think just last year for the first time when I was listening to one of the episodes on her about. It is the Great American Novel podcast, and they discuss one of her books. Hurston was born and grew up in the post-Civil War, pre-Civil Rights South, the Jim Crow era. She spent most of her childhood in Eatonville, Florida, one of the first all-black towns to be incorporated into the United States. She later described Eatonville as a place where African Americans could live freely and as they wanted, independent of white society and without pervasive racism. So a little oasis for them back then, I guess. Her experience and culture are what contributed to her writing style, which could be described as rhythmic and lyrical. She wrote in colloquial Southern dialects that mimicked the language she grew up hearing. Furthermore, since many African Americans were illiterate prior to the Reconstruction era, they told stories through song and speech. Hurston's lyrical writing reflects that kind of storytelling, and the hymn she recited as the daughter of a Baptist preacher. See, now this is more what I was thinking of when I got this found this article, is like the writing style is, like her and Hemingway are very unique. Like you said, if they did a Hunter S. Thompson with the Gonzo journalism, that would be a unique writing style. Whereas Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, that was literally written like all the Gothic stories of the time.
You know what I thought? Well, I'm surprised. I mean, I don't know if they have any more women on here, but I'm surprised we haven't, like, if they don't do Shelley Jackson.
Yeah, I would say Shirley Jackson was pretty unique. Virginia Woolf also. But, let's continue. Maybe they'll be on here. Here is a quote from Their Eyes Were Watching God. Listen, Sam, if it was one nature, nobody wouldn't have to look out for babies touching stoves, would they? 'Cause they just naturally wouldn't touch it, but they sure will, so it's caution. No, it ain't. It's nature, 'cause nature makes caution. It's the strangest thing that God ever made now. Fact is, it's the onlyest thing God ever made. He made nature, and nature made everything else. It's tough, because it's easy to read in your head.
Yeah.
The spelling of those words. But I get the accent. I'm used to accents just from Cormac McCarthy's ridiculous works.
Yeah.
But, Southern accents. Her strong connection to her heritage and her unwavering dedication to uplifting black writers and readers made her a pioneer of African-American literature in the Harlem Renaissance. So maybe we'll read one of her books in the near future for something. Still haven't read Toni Morrison either. But, I keep seeing a bunch of asshole conservative lit bros on YouTube saying, it's overrated. No. Overrated. That's what you always get. Overrated. Why is it overrated? She's only celebrated because she's black. Oh, fuck you, maybe. But they don't ever mention Miss Hurston here. Okay, now we're talking.
All right.
Writing styles of the contemporaries.
All right.
Which are not contemporary anymore.
No.
One, Hunter S. Thompson.
Hey.
A true revolutionary, Hunter S. Thompson believed in no bullshit attitude. I don't really need to read about him because not only have we done Fear and Loathing on this podcast, we discussed him this episode, but he took his background in journalism and wrote in a very unique way in that, say, like Fear and Loathing, or what's the Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail or something, the other one? He wrote about what he did when he was doing his investigative journalism. So, in Fear and Loathing, he was going to like a desert race. Mm-hmm. But then he fictionalizes what he did in a way that's ridiculous, but yet you believe he did it because of his outrageous, and we want to talk about the writing routines episode. His routine was like drink and fucking do crack and just all kinds of shit. So his writing style was very unique because he took the Hemingway journalist style, but then amped it up with just ridiculous nonsense and imagination. So here is a quote from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Hallucinations are bad enough, but after a while, you learn to cope with things like seeing your dead grandmother crawling up your leg with a knife in her teeth. Most acid fanciers can handle that sort of thing, but nobody can handle that other trip. The possibility that any freak with $1.98 can walk into Circus and suddenly appear in the sky over downtown Las Vegas 12 times the size of God, howling anything that comes into his mind. No, this is not a good town for psychedelic drugs. Reality itself is too twisted. I love that fucking book. We need to reread that, actually. Like, that one, it was so ridiculous. If you want to be like Thomas, do lots of drugs. I wish they would have put, even though he did write some fiction, but he's mostly a poet guy. It was Dylan Thomas. Yeah. I would have really been interested if they put him on this list just because some of the things he wrote were, besides the fact that he was a drunken madman, some of the things he wrote were very unique and interesting.
Say, and if you are a Hunter H. Thompson fan and you haven't checked that out or haven't known, they also did a graphic novel
of the Fear and Loathing,
which is an interesting read to see some of the things that he's talking about.
The cartoonist nature of the prose interspliced with the actual cartoons.
Yeah,
is pretty cool. Next up, Toni Morrison, which we just discussed. She won the Pulitzer Prize and the Nobel Prize.
Ooh.
And also the American Book Award, if that's something you fancy.
I guess. Just pulled the hat trick of the awards.
Much like Maya Angelou, she had a very tough upbringing, and I'm not going to go into all that stuff because we're short on time here, but she's obviously one of the most famous writers of all time. Her novel Beloved, there's still contention on whether it was the pronunciation, which I feel like she should have said, 'cause she's been alive. She only died recently, so should have did an interview where she said the actual name. But yeah, she was very famous, and she had another one of those styles where it's like kind of lyrical and rhythmic, but maybe not as much as Hurston. Very kind of like magical, almost like, because you think of certain aspects kids can go through of like child abuse and things that can shape their mind in a way where it's like about escapism.
Oh, yeah.
So they're trying to escape their life. I think that kind of comes through in the writing. Almost like Maya Angelou's work like has that aspect where it's like you could feel the escape, but you're set in reality. It's unique. So this is from Beloved, quote from Beloved. There is a loneliness that can be rocked, arms crossed, knees drawn up, holding on this motion. Unlike a ship smooths and contains the rocker, it's an inside kind, wrapped light like skin. Then there is a loneliness that roams. No rocking can hold it down. It is alive on its own, a dry and spreading thing that makes the sound of one's own feet going seem to come from a far-off place. So you get like the rhythmic kind of nature there. Next up, Otessa Mosfev. Never heard of this person. Otessa Mosfe is interested in your comfort. Isn't interested in your comfort. She wants you to be uncomfortable. She wants you to sweat bullets and feel itchy.
Oh, nice.
I had it that it doesn't say that. Through the eyes of deeply flawed, morally complex characters, Otessa tends to explore the dark underbelly of humanity, using caustic humor to highlight themes of addiction, isolation, violence, and existential dread. Going into humor, though, John Kennedy Toole would have been a good one for this list just because of I guess he didn't have enough work, but his style was very unique, like especially the characterizations that he used. Stylistically, Otessa's prose is relatively straightforward, but though it's easy to read, it isn't always easy to swallow. Her writing pushes boundaries and evokes unease, challenging the reader with grotesque languages surrounding bodily functions and vivid depictions of human cruelty. So kind of like a Ryu Murakami. Language is easy to understand, but the nature of the story and what reality is being shown to the reader, it can be gross and hard to read. Here's a quote. Oh, my God.
It's a big one.
I think this writer just likes this person, the author of this article. My year of rest and relaxation. I might not read this whole one. It's like a fucking page long. On September 11th, I went out and bought a new TV VCR at Best Buy so I could record the news coverage of the planes crashing into the Twin Towers. Trevor was on a honeymoon in Barbados. I'd later learn. I'm not going to read all this too much. It's very straightforward. I'm surprised Dickhead wasn't on here. David Foster Wallace.
Oh, yeah.
Again, very unique writing style. And unique writing style doesn't mean good to everybody. Alan Moore, Alan Moore's kind of a mimic, though. It seems like whatever he's reading at the time, he writes like. So I don't know if you can say he's completely unique in his writing style. Then it just has some advice on writing.
Yeah, because he kind of likes to mash things, I feel like, different kind of writing styles.
Yeah, different. I mean, Jerusalem was written in a bunch of different writing styles, like almost like his version of Ulysses, I guess. Anyway, that was the list. There's some different things on the end of that about writing styles, but yeah, any other writers you could think of that are very unique? I mean, we talked about like in the Voice episode, like Neil Gaiman and Stephen King, but I don't think the actual writing style is, something that can be individually pointed out. Like if you had a list of excerpts, but you didn't have any title.
What about Vonnegut?
Vonnegut, I think, is his sardonic nature. I would say is pretty unique writing style. Probably like a Philip K. Dick, though. I haven't read enough of his work to know if it goes beyond just the sci-fi nonsense. Lovecraft, obviously.
I was just gonna say like Lovecraft or Howard.
The thing about Howard is I don't know. I haven't read enough of his pulp contemporaries to see if his style is similar.
True.
Because the only other one I read, a good bit of was Lovecraft, which is unique. It's his own style. Though it's only unique in his, what he was writing about, because he often wrote in a style similar to Edgar Allan Poe, which would be another one and Mark Twain I would also throw on the list. But I guess that's getting too old. They seem to stick in the 20th century and above. So, anyway, that was interesting, I guess. It didn't cover the actual aspects of what makes their writing styles unique so much, but, you only got so much time and word count a day. Anyway, if you folks want to follow us on the internet at the podcast, that's what it is. At DPW Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and Twitter, and all that shit. Spencer's OnlyFans. He is in Cambridge, and he's crumbling cookies. It's his OnlyFans.
Crumble.
Crumble. What are you doing with the crumbles?
Eating.
Just okay. You dump them in milk and drink it, or?
Yeah. It's
Yeah. You can follow me at CalebJamesK.com. I have more books out, so you can check for links on there. If you want to go to the publications tab, you can get links. And next week we'll be discussing writing routines, which I feel like we did an episode on, but fuck it.
I think it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Anyway, we'll check you next week. Have a good day and or night.